Hey there, hi, welcome to the channel. I am Garrett, and in today's video, we are actually at Floor & Decor. We're talking about the best flooring options for your home. This video is not sponsored, but let's head in and see what they've got. We're starting off talking about LVP luxury vinyl plank. This is probably the biggest trend in flooring right now because it's accessible and it lays easily. You can see just how thick these pieces are. That means you get a lot of coverage very, very quickly because they're all thick. Now this is a man-made material. It's essentially plastic, and that's okay because it actually has a lot of durability and functionality that people love. You can also put this in more areas than you would expect because it has a certain amount of water resistance. It's okay to use in bathrooms and even basements, as where you couldn't do that with an engineered or a solid wood flooring. Now there's a couple of things you have to think about when it comes to vinyl plank because there are so many options. It's unbelievable. Number one is going to be the actual look of the wood and how realistic it looks. Some of these are just not very realistic looking, and you don't expect to see them in actual wood. Like, you know, this is probably something you would not typically find in an actual wood because it's a little bit gray-green, as where something that's more of a darker tone like this you might, or something that's a white oak. Now I always recommend when you are looking at flooring, any sort, especially vinyl, whether you're doing like a vinyl or even a laminate, to look at real wood. Go have a look at the engineered flooring and find something you like that looks really natural, that's the perfect color for you, and then bring that over and compare it to the vinyl, because that's going to give you a realistic base as to what you're looking for. There's some other things you could think about, like the texture of the vinyl itself. These have an embossed texture on them, so I can actually feel the wood grains on this. That's nice till it comes time to clean it, because sometimes that texture won't actually be your best friend. Here's another detail I want you to take note of. There's this edge detail here where, so you know this is synthetic and it's not real wood. A picture of the wood is printed on a piece of paper that's then wedged in between or laminated in between the substrate and the wear layer on this. And typically that paper is wrapped around the edges so you get a perfectly flush seam. This one here doesn't actually have that. It has a little groove. This makes each individual plank of wood stand out a little bit more and makes them more obvious as individual planks, but my nail can actually go into this groove here. Like, I can grip on and hold it. That's going to be a channel where dust, dirt, debris, grime is going to collect, and it's going to be really hard to clean that out of there. You better get your toothbrush out if you're going for this option here. There's plenty of them that don't have this, that are perfectly smooth and flush, that are easier to clean and don't even have a texture on them, that are nice and smooth. That's what you would get with an engineered or a solid wood floor. So why would you not opt for that in a vinyl as well? Hey, it's me. No matter what you're doing in your home, whether you're making a big flooring decision or a tiny little change, you should work with an interior designer. I would recommend me. You can book a one-on-one interior design consultation with me using the link in the description box down below, or going to intro.co/GarrettLeChic. And we have a surprise, secret, not so secret Memorial Day sale right now through May 31st at 11:59 p.m. You can book that and get $50 off of a 30-minute or longer session using the link in the description box down below, or going to intro.co/GarrettLeChic. Be sure you check out the description box to see some more details about the sale. Here's a few examples of vinyl plank flooring that you might want to steer clear of. Something like this is going to read as being very gray. It's smooth, it doesn't have a big texture to it, but because it's gray, it's going to look best if you use other taupe tones in your home, which maybe that's not your decor style, so that's something you need to think about. This might look more modern in the store, but it may not necessarily read that way in your home. Here's another example. This looks like a beach walk or boardwalk. It looks like wood that's been outside and is really aged. It looks white. It looks almost painted. This isn't something I would opt for either. It's going to immediately read beachy and coastal, but it's not going to read as real wood. That's something to steer clear of. Come right over here. Look at this flooring here. This, I actually like the tones of, but this is a very, very enlarged image of wood. Super wide planks. I mean, look at this. These are massive, but This, I mean, I can see the individual grains in it. We need something that's a little bit more tight and compact and not as much movement or difference in it. This reads as being a little bit rustic because we can see the knots in the wood that are printed on here, but it doesn't look like real wood to me because of the scale of it. This is not how large the grains in wood actually are, so this is not something I would opt for when it comes to my client's home. Here's another example of a floor I want you to think about and steer clear of. There's a lot of variation between the planks of flooring here. We have a light gray, we have this blue kind of darker gray, we have a warmer toned gray, we have a rustic piece. There's a lot of variation in here. This is going to be a standout feature in your home if you put it in. I don't personally recommend it because I just don't like the look of it. It's a little too rustic without having real rhyme or reason to it, but this is going to be the standout feature if you were to put this in your home, meaning it's going to overwhelm every other thing you bring into the space. Not everything in your home is that special aha moment that people walk in and go, wow, look at all that flooring. We want to have an emphasis on the wall color, the decor, the furniture. This is immediately going to overwhelm it. Have a look at this here. Another example of a non-natural floor. I might expect to see this on siding on a barn. I don't expect to see it on a floor. It's gonna look like I'm getting splinters. That doesn't feel very natural to me. So I want something that has a little bit more of a realistic wood tone. Yes, this might be a little bit more orange brown than most people would go for, but it's an example of something that looks realistic. And come look at this right here. This is another example. There's just a lot of variation in here. So much. We have warm tones, yellow and browns, and then we have whatever this is. This is the same thing. It's a more rustic take than is necessary. You can achieve that look and goal through the furniture, the accessories, decor you bring into your home. It doesn't have to be for the flooring. You want something timeless and classic. The whole point is the flooring should be the backdrop, not the star of the show. Another feature to think about is what's called a wear layer. These floors are made with a printed image. They have a substrate underneath, a printed image, and then they have a wear layer on top. That means you have that much of a layer of protection before you damage the image underneath. For example, this has a 22mm wear layer, and that's pretty good. It could be a little bit better. You'll see it oftentimes that's a little bit lower as well, so keep that in mind. Well, everyone, of what I've seen so far, this is my favorite option here. It's a neutral tone. It would read as being brown. It would read as being a little bit warm. Super neutral. I like the color of it. It does have these grooves, which is not ideal, but you gotta make some sort of sacrifice, right? So this is something that I like very much. It's got a good wear layer of 22mm, and it's only $279 a square foot, which makes vinyl plank one of the most affordable options you could bring into your home. As long as you find the right version of it, it will look good. Just be mindful of what you're choosing and don't buy it before you check it out in your home. Surprise, you've made it this far in the video, and now would be the perfect opportunity to hit the subscribe button and join us. Become a part of our GarrettLeChic family, where we post interior design content to help elevate your home and elevate your life. I'd greatly appreciate if you hit that subscribe button, gave this video a like, and maybe you could even share it with somebody who could use some flooring tips for their home. Okay, let's have a talk about engineered flooring, because unlike vinyl, it is real wood, but there's some pros and cons you have to know about. One of the big cons is that you don't use this in a wet area. So in a bathroom, for example, I would not put engineered flooring as where you could potentially do vinyl. It does have more durability, and so it's safe to use in a kitchen. But bear in mind, if something goes wrong, if you have a leak, you'll probably have an issue. Now, there's plenty of finishes and options you could go for with engineered flooring, but just keep in mind, this is wood. It has a very thin layer of wood, so there's gonna be a lot of variation in it because wood is natural, unlike vinyl plank where, yeah, every piece in the box might be different, but as you get more and more boxes, you're gonna get more and more pieces that are printed the same. Engineered, you won't necessarily have that. Another thing to keep in mind is actually what is at the base of the wood. What is the substrate? Because you have a very thin layer of wood. You can see right here we have 1mm of veneer. That's what the wood is. It's a veneer. And then we have a substrate underneath. So in this instance here, this is a water resistant engineered wood. It's got a synthetic substrate on it, unlike other forms of engineered that have a almost plywood-like substrate. Now, something to bear in mind that I see a lot of people kind of overlook when it comes to engineered flooring is actually the thickness. This material is thinner than hardwood. It's thinner, so it doesn't always match up perfectly with existing hardwoods, with existing tile, and you may have to raise a floor or put something underneath to lift it up a little bit. Keep that in mind. Now, there are a couple of other things I want you to know when it comes to engineered flooring. Number one, Some people will tell you you can refinish it, but because of how thin the veneer layer is, that's unlikely to happen and is more difficult. People will say you can do it. I don't personally know anyone that's ever refinished engineered floors, so I don't know that it's actually possible to do, which would mean if you needed to fix it or refinish it, you're probably gonna end up replacing it altogether, which might be a little bit more expensive. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is not a floating floor. Unlike vinyl plank, vinyl plank goes in very quickly because it doesn't have to be glued down. This does. It has to be affixed to the floor in some way, either through nailing it, which most flooring companies don't do. They glue it. So it has to be glued in place, which is not a bad thing, but just bear in mind, it doesn't install quite as quickly. It also comes at more of a premium price point. So you will have to spend a little bit more, but you're getting authentic wood. No matter what sort of flooring you opt for, is that it's not always in production. Sometimes they make a limited batch of it, and once it sells out, it's gone forever. Especially with an engineered flooring like this, they will have variations in the stain and the finish of it, so it's good to buy some extra boxes and have them on hand in case something goes wrong, in case you need extra, or if you have to replace some of it in a certain area, you may not be able to find that exact same product or material afterward that you need to repair it, and then you may end up having to replace it all. This is probably my favorite option available in store today. This is actually a white oak that's stained a little bit darker, but it's a super neutral base tone. Like I'm telling you, these mid-tone brown woods are always timeless and classic. This is a good option. It's a little bit thinner in plank size than some of the other ones we've seen and some of the vinyl plank options, but it's a super, super classic option to go for. Come over here and look at this one. This is nice. It's a little warmer, okay? And this is kind of wire brush, so it's got a texture to it. Definitely something worth thinking about, and it's on clearance. But this is another option. This is also a white oak that has more of a warm tone finish on it. If you like that classic white oak look that's very on trend right now, this is your option right over here. Come have a look. You see how smooth, how soft this is. The grains are pretty refined. I'm not the biggest fan of this one over here. This is a little yellow looking down here, but this up here has that classic white oak look that designers are loving right now. It is a little bit more on trend, but it has the potential to be very timeless. It does come at a premium, so keep that in mind. Now, obviously, there's a conversation to be had about solid wood floors, but there are some things to keep in mind. Number one, what we're looking at here is pre-finished, and when you use an actual solid hardwood floor in your home, you have a lot of finish options available to you because it's being finished in place. And something else to think about is where you're using that and how you're using it, because solid hardwood floor is not for everyone and not for everywhere, and by everywhere I mean the climate you live in. For example, I live here in Las Vegas. In the desert, it's very hot with low humidity, which means we sometimes get gapping in the wood, like you can see in the sample board right here. But in other areas where you have a lot of humidity, you might have expansion. That's the problem when it comes to a solid hardwood floor. Not to say that you can't use it in a kitchen, but that is something you have to think about because water will significantly damage a solid hardwood floor. Now, there's a couple of them here in store I like. This is probably my favorite of the lot. I like how neutral and soft the color is, but also how tight the graining of the wood is. This is very pretty. This is a birch act. With real wood though, you sometimes get some wild variations of it, like this for example. This is an exotic wood, so we have very high contrast moments. This is not something I would recommend for anybody or most people because it's hard to decorate around. You have the low spots, the darker colors, and then these brighter ones. Which of these do you choose? What do you do your cabinetry in? What is the furniture gonna be? This is harder to decorate around than something that's a little softer and more neutral, like this. This, I actually very much like the coloring on. I'm not always the biggest fan of a super wide plank. I prefer something that's a little bit thinner, but these are beautiful. This is a little bit wire brush, so it has some texture to it, but it does have some significant edges here that will kind of build dirt and debris. So that's always something to think about when it comes to pre-finished hardwood floors. Now, I know everybody likes to consider tile flooring as well, so let's have a look at some really good options. They've got wood look tile that looks great, some synthetic marbles that we'll talk about, and some alternatives. Come have a look at them. Elephant in the room, let's address it. Yes, I'm back home. The store was just a little too busy, so I want to talk to you about all of the other tile options as well as wood look. Now, wood look tile has come a long way since it first came out, and I think it is a good option to consider if you live in a climate where tile floors are the correct answer for you. It's not for everyone and everywhere. Like, I wouldn't put all tile floors on the second floor of my home, but you know, you might decide to do that on your first floor, and wood look is a good option. If you're thinking about it, you want to lay it the same way you would a wood floor. Any wood floor of any type, whether it's vinyl, wood, engineered, I would lay them all in the longest length of your space. That way they look and feel natural and they make more sense. Plus, you're paying a lot of money for these long lengths of flooring. Why would you not want to get what you're paying for? So I always recommend having someone do that for you. And when it comes to the wood look tile floor, the one major difference I notice with the wood look tile versus an engineered or a vinyl plank is that we have grout lines that we don't have on all of the other types of flooring. So when I'm choosing grout for these, I'm gonna look for something that matches the tile, and I'm gonna make those the thinnest grout lines I can so that they kind of disappear and fade away, and I can just see the beautiful wood look tile that we've selected. Also, be aware of the texture on these. Some of them can be a little bit rougher, some of them can have grooves in them, and some of them will be smoother. Anything smoother is going to be easier to clean and it won't collect dirt the same way, and that's a really good idea to remember. Now let's talk about the everything else category. There's natural stone you could put on your floors, and I think that's beautiful. It's not necessarily for everyone. The maintenance of it and the cost of it is also something to think about. There are lots of different natural tile flooring options out there, and they're all worth thinking about. I personally would treat myself. If I was doing a wood of some sort in the main areas of my home, I would put a natural tile floor into the bathrooms, because if they're smaller, that isn't such a big cost. Even though they may have a higher cost per square footage, you're buying less of them. That's a great luxury feature to add to your home. At the same time, it's worth thinking about in like an entryway space if you want to have natural tile floors. They're just beautiful. On the other hand, we have man-made tiles, and all of these are really good too, but there are some things we have to talk about, because right now one of the biggest trends in flooring is fake marble or marble look tile. And unfortunately, it just doesn't look the same. Marble has a finish on it that just cannot be replicated synthetically. It just can't be. And that's absolutely fine. It's perfectly okay. But if it were me, I would not be looking to do that with tile floors, because it just won't look real. It just won't look real. I'd rather get something that's even cheaper than the synthetic tile floors and opt to get something a little more luxurious somewhere else, like on my countertop. So in my personal opinion, I want something that is easy to clean, that's neutral, that does not have a shiny or a polished finish on it, because it's gonna show a lot more streaks and dirt or anything on it. Plus, there's a little bit of a slippage issue. If there's any sort of water spill on them, you're gonna just go flying, and I don't love that. So I would look for something with a matte finish or a honed finish on it that has some soft coloring to it. And what I mean by that is a little bit of movement, but not heavy veining. And I want a little bit of variation in color so we can easily work with that, but I don't want something that has harsh contrasts either. So something that's soft and neutral. Concrete look floors are fine. There's also synthetic versions of travertine that are a lot softer, that look really beautiful. The most important thing to remember is seeing what these look like in your space, because if they read as being a little too yellow or a little too pink, they'll look like builder grade tiles, and we absolutely don't want that. A good way to avoid that is going oversized with the tiles. Instead of doing, a basic 12 by 12, you could go for an 18 by 18. I personally am not a fan of elongated tiles. You might see a 12 by 24 or an 18 by 24. I don't care for them because they tend to have a brick-like layout to them or pattern, and it creates this kind of weird effect, almost like a railroad effect, where you just see these big long lines across a space that are not broken up. It's not just about the finish of the tile, the look of the tile, the colors on it. Sometimes it's about how it's laid in your home that will determine the overall style. By the way, here's Arden, and he just popped in to say, now that you heard everything there is to know about choosing flooring for your home, be sure you check out this video right over here, all about how to decorate your living room like a designer, and we will see you over there. And by the way, thanks for watching.